We are live 149 days since the start of the college football season, and it all comes down to one final day, one final game. It is the college football 2026 national championship. Miami and Indiana is your matchup. Boys, it's been a long journey. It's been a long road, but we're here to the final day. I don't know if you can believe it. I can't believe it. The college football season has gotten a lot longer. Almost 150 days is absurd for a college football season. We got a lot of episodes in. I believe this is show 19, or not 19, sorry, 16 of the season, which is way more than I think we did in our college days. So, with that, let's get started on this episode. Gentlemen, first, how are we doing?
I mean, I'll kick us off. I'm jubilant. I almost had us delayed to get on air. I'm so excited. This is a great game. So much to break down. Of course, I've got takes galore. I know we all do. We got the jerseys going today. We should be in Miami right now, by the way. That's why I'm wearing this jersey. At the start of the year, we thought the Nittany Lions would be there. Boy, how did we miss in these past 149 days. But it's been a hell of a ride, gentlemen. It is a phenomenal national championship slated for tonight, so I'm in a great mood.
I mean, I guess I'll go next. I got to echo that sentiment. I'm in a cheerful mood. I was gonna be happy considering, when we were 149 days ago, I was happy considering I thought Penn State would be playing today. So I thought I'd actually be sad today that Penn State's not playing. But hey, new era of Penn State football, new era of the Giants. John Harbaugh officially signed, so I'm extra excited. And of course, you get to round out a great college football season with what I think is going to be a great game. I know others think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a great game regardless, and we'll get into all that. But I am fantastic. Josh, I want to skip you for a second. Thomas, are you okay? You had a really rough night last night.
Listen, at the end of the day, 3 of the 4 of us have a head coach. Hence why we skipped Josh. So I want to make a point that Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, Luther Burden, Roma Dunze, they're the future. We'll be back. You know what? I got to give credit, though. That is a very good Rams team. Their offense played pretty bad, and they still were able to get a win. So
I'm noticing the absence of a very particular DJ Moore in your sentence right there.
Well, because there was a certain play at the end of the game where sometimes you can't make those mistakes down the stretch. We'll put it that way. But listen, I'm happy that we got that far. So I can't say going from 5 wins to now 1 play or 2 plays away from the NFC Championship. I can't complain. So I'm actually doing pretty good despite what you may think, Justin.
All right, now we can go to Josh.
Yeah, Josh, you don't have a head coach. How are you doing?
You don't have a head coach. You don't have a football jersey on. I mean, how you doing?
I have an NC State jersey, even though it doesn't really make any sense considering their entire team is getting, ravaged by the transfer portal. Go Wolfpack, besides getting a few Penn State scraps. I don't know. I'm doing okay, besides the fact that this water bottle was liquid, and I put it outside for 5 minutes, and now it's not liquid anymore. It's negative 30 degrees outside. I wish I was in Miami because, God, would that be awesome to be in that weather right now. Instead, I'm going to be bundled up under 3 blankets watching Carson Beck versus Fernando Mendoza night. It's going to be fun regardless. I'm personally happy because I have heating, so I'm good. And it's going to be a fun game. And no, I don't want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers not having a head coach because they're probably just going to promote Arthur Smith. And they're going to go 7-10 next year.
It's it's better than being mediocre for the rest of your life. I feel like that's you had to make a step at some point.
Jets. So. Sorry, cough.
We would
no.
Mediocre sounds amazing.
I was going to say, do not
9-8 sounds like a great day at the park. It's better than 2-18, 2-14, whatever the hell they are anymore. I don't care.
Well, speaking of the Jets, they may have lost their quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, who will be playing tonight, hence the fact that Dante Moore is returning. And I think let's start right with the transfer portal. We're going to save the national championship for the end here. The transfer portal has been quite interesting in the quarterback position, in my opinion. A couple of the big names are now off the table, including Dante Moore, who decided to return. Dylan Raiola had committed from Nebraska to Oregon. and now Dylan Raiola back in the transfer portal. A lot of drama over with LSU and Sam Levitt, whether he was going, maybe last second he was going to flip, and also some drama with Damon Williams at Washington. That was a big debacle. I want to start there because I feel like we're going to have some strong opinions on that situation. And I definitely want to start with Mr. Justin Chavalella on that because I know he is big in the contract and negotiation side of things. So break down Williams and the Huskies.
Yeah, I mean, the quick summary is he signed a contract to return back to Washington. Next thing you know, I think it was not even 48 hours later, must have meant somebody behind the scenes, most likely Lane Kiffin, decided, hey, I still need a quarterback because I'm not getting the quarterback I thought I was going to. And, he said then he was entering the portal, but Washington had his rights through that NIL contract, and it was up to Washington. If they wanted to let him free of that contract, they were able to put the terms however they wanted to in that contract that would have made it a really expensive buyout. Jedd Fisch, along with Damon Williams and some of the administrators at Washington, talked it all out. They figured it out, and I think that's good. But I question how that goes in the locker room. First of all, now his contract number, which was multiple millions of dollars, is known by his teammates. And most of his teammates, actually, I'd go out and say probably all of his teammates are making less than him. And they all know not only is he making this money and keeping them from making this money, they know he doesn't really want to be there. They know that he would be able, or he'd be willing to jump ship for a bigger contract, which he'll probably do next offseason. And that's the problem. This whole scenario encapsulates what is wrong with college football right now. It used to be when a guy committed to a university, he stayed there, not just 1 year, not just two. Most of the time, not even just three, even though they could go to the NFL after three, they'd stay the full four, and they would play for the name on the front of their jersey and not the name on the back of their jersey. But we don't see that anymore. They're not even playing for their name on the back of the jersey right now. They're paying for the paycheck that comes into their to their savings account on a weekly or yearly basis. That's what they're playing for. They don't even care, I think, about themselves right now. It is strictly money, 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 and that's the only thing that they care about. We need leadership. We need direction. That's what college football needs. And I just leave it at that I'm glad this got figured out, but it's just going to keep resurfacing. And it happened on Friday. Transfer portal closes Friday. And just a couple of hours before it closes, Darian Mensah of Duke, who I thought was going to stay, who everyone thought was going to stay because he had a contract, he goes and enters the portal. And, the first name to surface on his, interest level is Miami. Interesting. Miami, who's playing in the national championship, is also trying to find their next quarterback at the same time, which is a scheduling problem here in college football. It simply boils down to we need leadership, we need direction, we need a commissioner in college football.
Josh, I want to get your thoughts on this as far as the quarterback market goes here. And, like Justin mentioning, some kind of entering last minute, others staying for an extra year in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough just trying to navigate the whole NIL landscape because it is always sort of changing and flowing. And I think we all agreed when NIL was first introduced that I think we can all agree that the concept of NIL is a good thing, college athletes getting paid. But the fact that there are virtually no regulations and no stipulations whatsoever, and it's been now 3 or 4 years of this, and it's getting worse and worse by the year. And I think we've gotten to the point. I think this Damon Williams thing is probably almost, if not the actual breaking point and the boiling point of NIL and the fact that we need regulations. I mean, that is something that simply just should not be happening. The fact we're talking about these college athletes in the sense of, they had a contract signed versus, they're just committed to play for the team. It's stupid. It ruins the joy and the fun of college football as a whole when it's like, so-and-so is re-signed to come back with Penn State or whatever it may be. It's like, well, that's just not really what it's about. And I think I understand when it comes to it for quarterbacks, especially because as a quarterback, especially look at a guy like Drew Mestemaker, who was really, really solid this past year at North Texas. You want to try and prove your worth, at the next level. And I think, North Texas is still a really good G5 team, but I think going to Oklahoma State with his head coach is going to be a good move. I think getting that experience in the Power Four is going to be good. But there has to be regulations. And I think, if there's any light at the end of the tunnel or any sort of circumstance whatsoever, if you look at what happened with Trinidad Chambliss, the fact that he went from Ferris State to being the starting quarterback on a team that almost made the national championship, that is what the transfer portal is supposed to be about. That right there is specifically what it is made for, especially from a quarterback perspective. Going from a school where you're playing in front of maybe 5,000 people a day to now going into the biggest stage and making a name for yourself, that's what it's about. Now, the fallout of that, and because of NIL, is the fact that now Trinidad Chambliss is now trying to sue and get a 6-year of eligibility when I have no idea why you'd want to do that. Your draft stock's at an all-time high. Why not go now? And it makes no sense why you have people that are trying to go back to college when your stock's an all-time high. Or you look at a guy like Carson Beck, who apparently has not had a college class in 2 years. That shouldn't be a thing. Me personally, I don't think if you aren't taking college classes, you should not be playing college football. I think that comes with the territory. It's student athlete, not just athlete. And I think we really lost the meaning of that, especially in the quarterback market.
I think it's an interesting point you make with Trinidad Chambliss and Carson Beck because, yeah, there's an argument. Carson Beck's in his 7th year of college football. But at some point, you do have to set a precedent. And unfortunately for Trinidad Chambliss, it became him with you are not getting a 6 year. You get 5. That's what it is at this point because it used to be 4. Now they want to give everyone an extra year. So at this point, unfortunately for Chambliss, I think, I'd love to see Trinidad Chambliss because I think he'd be a Heisman contender next year. But unfortunately, there has to be some rules set. And now going to Dylan, that's affecting the pro market now because now you look at the NFL draft where in the past, you had players that unfortunately were stuck on teams that maybe they didn't want to go to. And now you have Dante Moore. In all likelihood, and I'm not saying the top of the draft are not teams he wouldn't want to go to, but maybe that was part of the decision.
It. If I was Dante Moore, I wouldn't want to go to the Raiders or the Jets right now.
I mean, even beyond that, if he fell, those teams in the top 5 are not going to be organizations that maybe you want to go to. So Dylan, I go to you, how does that affect now the NFL draft and with players returning and players going in?
This feels like targeting. I feel like everyone else got what's going on.
Oh, don't get us started in the targeting conversation because we don't even know what that is right now.
This feels like targeting in the nature of that my team, the New York Football Jets, were the team to potentially lose out on their quarterback or at the very least the value of the pick because you can't necessarily trade down now to a quarterback-needy team. That was a scenario some had posed. Maybe they trade down with the Arizona Cardinals, get Kyler Murray, whatever it may be. Hated that scenario. Didn't even like Dante Moore, just liked the lucrative nature of having the second pick when there's 2 quarterbacks, not just one. Now the hope is that the Raiders maybe trade with a team and get their quarterback, and then Fernando, the guy I want to be the savior of the New York Football Jets, would fall in the Jets' lap, but that's a whole nother episode for a whole nother day. Your question about what it does to the NFL draft as our resident draft guru, it makes it weak. It does. I mean, this is going to be one of the weakest NFL draft classes we have seen in some time. We have seniors and veterans coming out that have played and are experienced in college football, but then you have a litany of guys who have played 8 years of college football essentially and are coming out. And I mean, you have the Tyler Shucks of the world where that pans out. Then you have the guys where that's limiting your NFL career. That's, again, a whole nother topic. But you have kind of, in my opinion, still a star-studded first round, but the depth of the class, particularly this quarterback class, is now completely up in the air. Trinidad Chambliss is a very good quarterback. Should Trinidad Chambliss be drafted in the first round? Should Trinidad Chambliss be drafted in the top 50 picks? No. He's probably going to be. He's probably going to be a top 30 pick in this NFL draft. Same with Ty Simpson, who's probably now the number 2 quarterback on most boards. And there's a realistic chance we start hearing Carson Beck and Drew Aller back into the top 5 of this quarterback class and possibly back into the top 50, which is crazy to think about. It has completely thrown a wrench in everything, just as it has in the college game, now in the NFL. If I see another stupid re-signing post from a college program, it's not re-signing. It's just going back for another semester. Everybody does it if you're in college. You don't need to put a post out to announce you're going back to take Math 120 for the 3rd time. The reality is that you don't need to put a post out about it. Just go to class. And I hate that this is where we've come in the college football world. I 100% agree with your guys' sentiment. There needs to be a college football commissioner. This is the wild, wild west right now. All you have to have is money, money, money. And there's my first of 2 ABBA references today to succeed at this point. Texas Tech got the oil merchants involved, and all of a sudden they can make a college football football playoff. If you've got the oil money, if you've got whatever money coming in, you're likely going to make it to the national championship because look where we are now. Josh, you're 100% right. There's good sides of it. Fernando Mendoza is the perfect example. In a world where there's not a lot of money and not an opportunity for him to go to a top flight program, he's probably still playing at Cal, playing in more of the woke versus Coke games. But the reality is that we've seen stories like Mendoza, seen stories like Trinidad Chambliss come to the forefront because of the portal. And then we have the Darian Mensahs of the world who do a LeBron James-like decision video to only end up leaving the program a month later. So there's got to be guardrails. There's got to be a commissioner because it's not just hurting the college game. It's hurting the pro game too.
And who was the tackle from Colorado? Is it Jordan Seaton who made Colorado make him a graphic thinking he was going to return, and then he edited it over it so that he could announce he was entering the portal? Last point on this, I think what we all tend to forget was NIL was supposed to be about jersey sales. It was supposed to be about public appearances. It was supposed to be about those small things, autographs, like that stuff. That's what NIL was supposed
commercial
to
deals.
Be. It was supposed to, commercial deals. It was supposed to allow us to get college football back on our, gaming consoles. That was what NIL was intended for. It wasn't intended to spend $5.5 million for a guy to quote unquote re-sign with your team. That's not what this was intended for. And I think that's what we've completely lost sight of is everyone's like, yeah, I think players should get paid. They should for everything I just named. They shouldn't get paid just to play. And I think that is where it's been lost is we should not be giving out professional style contracts right now while these guys are still in school, while they're still, university students and they're barely in school. And I'm okay with, the schools being able to pay a little bit of money. But when we're talking about $1 million contracts, that's where we've lost sight of everything. And at this point, it's just a minor leagues for the professionals.
We went somewhere from Tim Tebow, this was a tweet I saw the other day, having to go back to a Cracker Barrel to figure out the bill because somebody bought him dinner, to now $10.5 million possibly not being enough for you to stay at the program you're at. Somewhere the entire game changed, the landscape changed, and now we've gotten to a point where if you've got a bag, you're probably going to make it to the college football playoff.
So out of that, Dylan, with your point in the pro draft, you're not going to be happy with Drew Aller in the top 5.
I plead the fifth, Your Honor. We're a Penn State. We are a Penn State biased program, but I'm going to plead the fifth on any New York Jets quarterback talk that doesn't include Fernando Mendoza.
Well, you might want to direct that to elsewhere soon because he may be going with the.
Okay, let's not talk about it. Let's talk about him later.
All right.
Hey, you have a head coach.
Yeah,
barely.
You do? Well, that's harsh.
I love Aaron Glenn, and we all know that. I'm just saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, as far as the transfer portal goes, anybody that stands out to you guys of a potential big land for a school? I feel like Drew Messmaker was one that we mentioned. We've already talked a lot about quarterbacks, but are there any big names that stand out that you think could have the biggest impact? Josh, we'll start with you this time.
I mean, we have talked a lot about quarterbacks. Obviously, I think one that kind of goes a little bit, maybe not under the radar. I mean, you can talk a lot about the fact that Penn State's got like the entirety of Iowa State's roster and, probably one of the best safeties in Marcus Neal and a really good tight end. But I think when you go to, the wide receiver market, especially Cam Coleman, who was a really, really good receiver for Auburn this past year, goes to another SEC team in Texas. I think not just is that a good move in general, because obviously Cam Coleman was one of the top receivers available in the transfer portal, but I think it helps for a guy like Arch Manning, who I think really needs more weapons around him to probably try and get a little bit more confidence, because I think we can all sit here and agree that he did not have the season that anybody was really expecting him to have as the quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. In fact, I'm pretty sure when we did that show with Dylan way back when, at least one person said that Arch Manning was going to win the Heisman. That might have actually even been me. So regardless, I think it's a good move. It wasn't you. I know that. Yes, I know that you're going to sit there and smile and gloat because you were right about Arch Manning. But I think the addition of Cam Coleman to a Texas team that's already probably going to be loaded again, but I think getting a bona fide number one starting wide receiver, a guy that put up really good numbers on a bad Auburn team, I think having him alongside Arch Manning will certainly help his development and probably make him look at least more like the projected top pick in next year's draft.
Dylan, we'll go to you.
Hollywood Smothers going there as well. I mean, they're loading up on talent in the portal, and I think that, like you
said,
you
had to mention that.
It's only gonna benefit Arch in the long run. I'm gonna go to Oregon. I mean, the Ducks rocked the portal. Coy Parrish was a guy who his freshman year in Minnesota starred. They made him a two-way player. I don't think they should have made him a two-way player because I think outside of Caleb Downs, his freshman year, he was one of the two best defensive backs in all of college football. Parrish adds some serious talent on the back end for an Oregon team that also made some other additions, and then of course, Dylan Raiola going to sit behind Dante Moore for a year. One, you're now too deep at quarterback. If you have to play him, you know he's ready. But also, this is the Dante Moore effect. You get time, you get seasoning, and you get to play behind an experienced quarterback. We've seen it work in the pro ranks. We've now seen it work with Dante Moore. It can absolutely work for Dylan Raiola, who played pretty well, but had some flaws in his game this year that I think Dan Lanning's staff's going to be able to work out. We'll see what they are without Will Stein. We'll see what they are without some of these key pieces leaving. But this is a team that I think has found a way to master the portal like few. And I mean, there's obviously the others of the world, one that's playing in the national title game tonight. But I think the Ducks deserve a shout out because they did a really good job in the portal.
Justin?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the team that's playing in the game tonight that used the transfer portal to get where they were last year, to use it again for this year with their Heisman winning quarterback. And, well, they did it again at the quarterback position and getting Josh Hoover for Indiana. That's a big get, one of the best transfer portal quarterbacks out there. And I think his name is overlooked because he played for TCU, and TCU ended up falling off a little bit towards the end of the season after a pretty good start that included a big win over UNC to start the season while everyone was looking at Belichick. It was Hoover and TCU going and getting that win. And I think getting Hoover, but more importantly, getting Nick Marsh, the wide receiver from Michigan State, to transfer over as well. That's a great quarterback wide receiver combo. We're talking about, if you look at Indiana right now, Mendoza to Becker to Surratt or to really any of those guys, like that is what this era of college football is. Indiana, I don't think will ever really give snaps to a high school quarterback again. I think for as long as Cignetti is there, they'll be getting a transfer quarterback with only a year left on his college eligibility. And I think it has worked out for them last year with Dylan Rourke. It's worked out with them with Fernando Mendoza this year. And I think it'll work out well with them for Josh Hoover. I mean, and if we want to talk about another team real quick that I think's had another good transfer portal class, it's the team that I think got the best transfer quarterback in Brendan Sorsby going to Texas Tech. They've gotten 20 recruits in after spending $35 million in the portal last year. They continue to do it that way too, and it worked for them this year, and they're looking to get over the hump. So it's kind of been fun watching how these teams operate, but it's also, I think, frustrating from a guy that, and I think we can all kind of echo this, we all don't like it in a sense because it's not traditional college football, but at the end it is still kind of fun to monitor and watch as this all goes.
I think Brendan Sorsby is a good one because that was one I was going to mention as far as I know we're talking about quarterbacks a lot here, but like that's a really good pickup, especially for a guy who was up and down at the end of the year, but really good to start the year. I think Texas is a team, like Josh mentioned, that has kind of gotten, ravaged a little bit, especially at the running back position, but they brought back a decent running back in Raleek Brown from Arizona State. I like Cam Coleman a lot, and overall, Hollywood Smothers as well coming in. Those are really good pickups for Texas. But, I mean, talk about, a little bit of a team that maybe is under the radar, but trying to follow a similar model to Indiana with, North Texas going to Oklahoma State. I mean, that's a really good move there. You get Drew Mestemaker, the top running back in the country, essentially in Hawkins. And then they picked up a couple of 4-star transfer wide receivers as well that are very good. So I think that's an interesting situation there. I'm not going to go out and say, they're going to execute to the same level as Indiana is and Texas Tech and those teams because, it's not every day you have a group of 5 coach come in and just dominate like Curt Cignetti is. But I'm going to say that I think Oklahoma State will be much improved from this past year. I'm honestly surprised Mestemaker didn't go to Indiana. I understand he followed his coach, but Mestemaker, I think Dylan thought of this as well, was kind of a very good fit for Indiana. But I think LSU did really well as well. I mean, Lane Kiffin had a lot of pressure, right? I mean, going over to LSU and trying to bring in as much as he could, and they have done a good job. They're the number one team in the portal rankings for a reason. I could go up and down the list and talk about everyone they brought in, but I mean Longstreet at the quarterback position, a young guy, could be really good for them. And then they have 4 stars and 5 stars. Ty Benefield from Boise State, a guy who played really well against Penn State. We watched him in that game in the Fiesta Bowl, and he was young at that time. He has really matured and gotten really good at that safety position. I think I'm not sure if he's as good as Coy Parrish, but I think he could be at that position. And I agree with Dylan. Coy Parrish was another one I was going to bring up. But LSU, I think, had a lot of pressure going in with Lane Kiffin of saying, you have to build one of the top transfer portal classes, or else this is kind of, not going to set up well for your first season. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those few teams right there with that. I think we've covered everything in the transfer portal, unless you guys have some other topics to discuss. I'm going to open up the floor here.
Watch out for UCLA. Chesney has brought over a great portal class, but that's all I had outside.
How about Tennessee getting more top talent from Penn State than a certain head coach in Blacksburg? Just found it ironic that Jim Knowles got crapped on all season by Penn State fans, by Penn State media, by the fan base as a collective, and then all of a sudden he goes to another program and 2 top talents amongst those to follow him, Amari Campbell and Cam Coleman. But, everybody thinks big game.
Cam Coleman?
Chaz Coleman. Sorry.
Cam Coleman's at Texas.
Now we're Dylan Rourke. What did you say before? Anyway,
I don't even remember.
He
didn't say Alan Rourke.
Jim Knowles is there for 1 year, and he brings more talent, top talent, with him to Knoxville than James did with Blacksburg. But
careful, a certain Twitter account's going to find you and try and harass you now that you.
We should actually send this to that Twitter account.
Probably.
Listen, if Jim Knowles can really turn around that Tennessee defense, they already are a high-scoring offense. That could be a good.
Yeah, except
the bar is pretty low when it was Tim Banks' defense. He was not a very good defensive coordinator.
Heupel is still their head coach, and as long as Heupel's there, they're never. They don't have low expectations or whatever.
He wants high expectations.
He wants high expectations, which apparently Penn State didn't have. But then he went and got their defensive coordinator and took a bunch of their talent. But hey, I don't know. Heupel's just not a good head coach, I think, for Tennessee. I think he'd be better elsewhere.
So maybe it's safe to say on paper, stats-wise, they may be good, but they're not going to win a national championship.
Good thing.
On paper, Penn State was supposed to be playing tonight. So
was Clemson.
You know what? That's why I said
they didn't play each other in a bowl.
Hey, maybe we should talk about the game that's actually being played tonight.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's dive into it, and there's no better place to start than how these two teams got here. I think that is the best place because, well, there was a lot of games going on. So there is your college football playoff bracket. Obviously, we went through the first round, the second round, and some of the bowl games as well. Oregon, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Miami win. And then Miami gets the upset in the Cotton Bowl over Ohio State. Ole Miss upsets Georgia. Indiana just dominates Alabama, and same with Oregon. And then in the Peach Bowl, Indiana, once again, 56 points, I believe, is what they put up. Just dominating from start to finish, literally start to finish with a pick 6 off the bat. And then Ole Miss falling to Miami, and Miami just, kind of, I don't know if you call them a Cinderella story, I guess, maybe just based on their seeding. But yeah, this is very much David and Goliath on a lot of people's opinions, with Indiana the number 1 seed and Miami sitting at 10. So let's talk a little bit about it, how they got here. We'll start with Indiana. Justin, what's impressed you with this team most so far in their run?
Probably Fernando Mendoza, as much as I don't like to say that. You guys know he has more touchdown passes than incompletions in this postseason. That is ridiculous when you think about it. I believe it's 8 touchdown passes to 5 incompletions throughout their first 2 games against 2, pretty good teams. Alabama probably didn't really deserve a playoff spot, but we made too much of Notre Dame versus Miami instead of actually looking at Notre Dame and Alabama, or Alabama and BYU, whatever. Besides the point, we're here for the national championship. I think just what Mendoza has been able to do and distribute the ball to a bunch of different guys, Becker and Surratt, and, their running game has been pretty good as well, with Hemby over there, doing his thing. And I think all around, it's just, this team wasn't supposed to mesh. We just talked about on paper, when you bring in transfer portal classes 2 years in a row, the size of, what Curt Cignetti did, it's not supposed to mesh this easily. And I think that's what they've been able to do. They're so fundamentally sound. And I think that's what we've seen. Like that pick that you talked about, Thomas, to open up that last game, the Peach Bowl, Oregon wasn't fundamentally sound at all in that game. And you could see it from that first snap, from that pick six, and just seeing how that play developed and how Indiana was right there. They were playing their man or their zone. I don't remember exactly what the play was, but it just, to me, is, fundamental football, and it starts with their quarterback. I don't think, he's not a dual threat by any means, but he's been able to scramble a couple times. He's able to stay up in the pocket. It's just impressive to watch how he has developed as a quarterback and, how he leads that team. It's not just his play. He's clearly the leader of that team. And I think he makes that clear in his post-game interviews.
I would agree. He's got some good clips have come out of that. Josh, let's go to you, our resident ACC expert. What's impressed you with Miami's Cinderella run?
ACC expert, wow. Yeah, I love that we keep bringing up the fact that NC State's entire team is just ravaged by the portal. Thanks for bringing up Hollywood Smothers, who has top 5 name in college football. Miami, I mean, the thing is that when you said it, Thomas, like, yeah, it's maybe not necessarily a Cinderella run by the full extent of it, because it's Miami, who has won national championships. They're a Power 4 team. But you have to go back to kind of what Justin brought up just a little bit ago. But Miami, to a lot of people, was not even supposed to be in this college football playoff. And they not only proved they deserve to be in there, but also proved that they have a chance to do the impossible and win as a 10 seed. I think, we have all these qualms with the college football playoff, and I think they are valid qualms and valid concerns to have about the way that they pick teams. But last year was an 8v7, and now you have a 10 seed in the playoff, in the championship this year. So, I mean, the seeding, at least to an extent, is working in that sense. I think what's really been solid for Miami has been the defense, right? I think you can talk a lot about Carson Beck has gone back to that early season form that when we first started doing this podcast, we really, really raved how he played. And we talked about Carson Beck up until they had those 2 losses midseason about being a Heisman finalist, potentially winning the Heisman in his 6th or 7th year, whatever it is he's playing now in college football. But the defense for Miami, especially in the trenches, that defensive line is just absurd. They've been able to find a way to wreak havoc on Julian Sayin. They did it against Trinidad Chambliss. And also, when it comes down to it, like, this is something that I think could be really a factor in tonight's game, is that you look at the pass that these two teams took to get here. Indiana has basically had a cakewalk. Indiana has cakewalked in almost every game they've played this year, too, besides on the road against Iowa and on the road against Penn State. But Miami's been playing playoff football since the middle of the season. And also, you look at that game against Texas, and that's a 1-score game. They took down the defending national champs in a game that was very close the entire time, and they needed a last-second touchdown or a last-minute touchdown against Ole Miss to win that game. So, I mean, they've been winning these nail biters. They're ready. They've got the clutch factor, I guess you could say, and that's really what we've seen from Carson Beck. It's kind of the old Georgia version of him at times when he was really stout at Georgia. But the main thing for Miami has been their defense. It kind of reminds me of how good their defense was in the 90s when they were that team, and the 80s when Miami was that team. Their defense has been unbelievable in this run, and the offense is doing it fantastic. I mean, Malachi Tony, you got to talk about him. He's been the best freshman in the entire country, in my opinion. I think he's going to –
He may be the best player on the field in the game tonight.
I think he will be.
Most talented.
Most talented for sure. I think best player, obviously – at the end of the day, it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. I mean,
it's going to be Ruben Bain.
But yeah. There's plenty of options, but Malachi Tony, okay, at least the most flashy guy to watch, I think, on the football field. I think that's what it comes down to, and that's really been how Miami has lived and died at times in this postseason has been Malachi Tony, and we'll get more into the nitty gritty and analysis, but this game is going to be won or lost in the trenches, and that's how Miami's been playing these games in the postseason, and that's how they've won their games in the postseason is the trenches.
Dylan, we'll go to you now as far as just kind of this matchup. I don't think was many people saw this matchup coming in. So to have this matchup tonight, and really a very similar matchup in terms of teams as far as on paper. I know we keep saying on paper, but like two good defenses. Indiana's been playing, going back to even the Big Ten championship game, their defense has been playing well. So when you look at this matchup on paper, it's a pretty good one, wouldn't you say?
I would agree. I also think just in the matchup itself, it's a rare matchup, not one you'd see often, and it's one that is befitting of this format. You, I think, have probably the two teams that are hottest at the right time in the tournament. As Josh mentioned, Miami's just gotten better as the season's wore on. You have the most experienced quarterback in college football manning things. He's 37-5, I think, in his career at this point. Am I correct in that, Justin? I feel like you're the stats expert on that.
It sounds about right. I'll go check it though.
I
thought you were calling him 37 years old as a joke, so
that's
where I thought that was going.
He's played a lot of college football, and he's won a lot of college football games. And then on the other side, obviously, we can't talk about him enough. The best quarterback in college football, the best player in this game tonight. If you count out, again, as Justin mentioned, Ruben Bain, and that's where I go, because when Mario Cristobal took over as the Miami Hurricanes head coach, his alma mater, when he man this ship after leaving Oregon, his big goal was, I want to build this team in the model of an SEC team. He's done exactly that. In the trenches, as Josh mentioned, they're maybe the strongest team in all of college football this year. On the edge, you have Ruben Bain, who I think is the most talented player in this game. He's going to be a top 5 pick, maybe top 3 pick in the NFL draft this year. And, on the other side, you have Akeem Mesidor, who is also exceptional and got banged up in the semifinals, but should be good to go. The secondary tonight scares me because you have Xavier Lucas out for the first half. You've got injuries across the board. Miami's beaten up in that regard. But you look at Indiana's tackles. In the game against Alabama, they were the struggle in a game where they got awarded the MVP of the game for their performance in the Rose Bowl 2 games prior. They kind of struggled in that game, and then kind of did the same thing against Oregon to an extent with Mateo Uiagalelei. I think there's definitely the nature of the beast here with these are the two of the top probably 10 edge rushers in the country up against 2 tackles who have struggled this season. I think that's going to be the one thing here, because Fernando Mendoza, despite being so talented and so precise with his ball placement, has gotten hit a lot throughout the course of this postseason, even in that game against Ohio State and the Big Ten championship. And he's been hit more than most quarterbacks in the country if you look at the numbers throughout the course of this season. If Ruben Bain, if Akeem Mesidor, if they can get home, it's going to make Mendoza's life a lot harder. And it's against a secondary that, to go back to my point, it's gutted, but it's going to make it a lot harder to tear that up with Omar Cooper and Surratt and Becker. It's going to make it a lot harder if he doesn't have any time in the pocket. So I think the goal of Mario Cristobal was to build this team in the trenches in the style of an SEC team. He's absolutely done that. He's got the flashy playmakers like Tony and Fletcher. But when it comes down to it tonight, I think the matchup that's going to be the most interesting to me is going to be, how do Indiana's tackles go up against 2 of the top edge rushers in the nation?
I don't have the exact stats on me, but I saw something the other day that, Mendoza, when he's pressured versus when he's, clean pocket, and there was a certain amount of seconds that it had to be, he was significantly worse. And I believe he had more interceptions than touchdowns. So if you can get pressure in his face, I completely agree. It's going to be a good matchup. And, Indiana is up there for the Joe Moore Award, the best offensive line in the country. And I would say that, Mendoza has not had to face a really good defense yet in this college football playoff. He would have if Texas Tech was advancing. I don't think Oregon's defense was as good as advertised. I don't think Alabama's. When you look at the bottom half of the bracket, obviously Miami's defense, Ohio State's defense was very good. Texas A&M's defense even was good. Georgia is obviously known for their defense being good. Mendoza kind of avoided the very, very elite defenses in the country. So when you look at this matchup, I completely agree. I mean, I was going to say the trenches are going to be where this game lives and dies. I mean, especially on the edge. Bane, he's one of those players. He's going to get drafted high when he's in the NFL draft, and I think this is going to be a situation where if Indiana can at least limit him, because a player like that you're never going to be able to shut down. Like it's almost inevitable, especially at the college level. I mean, in the NFL, maybe it's a little bit easier with guys being, a little bit more mature and similar in size and things like that. But at the college level, when you have a player like that, they're just going to be dominant. And so I think it's less about shutting him down, more about limiting him. But if you can do that and give Mendoza time, he has endless amount of weapons around him. And, he's the Heisman for a reason. I mean, you could say and look at the comparisons like, oh, he's, wouldn't be a top 5 Heisman in the last 5 years at the quarterback position or whatever, but like he won it. So you can't deny his talent. You can't deny that. And at the end of the day, he is coached by Curt Cignetti. And if there's anybody that I would trust in this game to get him ready, it would probably be Cignetti as far as making sure the game plan is set. So let's get down to kind of the nitty gritty. We touched on it a little bit here with the defenses, but give me one key player other than Ruben Bain, who we mentioned, and other than Fernando Mendoza on each side that you think could make a big difference. And, maybe we'll try to go under the radar here with a couple players. But Josh, we'll start with you.
I mean, I'm not going to go under the radar here. I think the key for Miami winning this game is going to be Malachi Tony and how available in open space he to be, how open he can get, and how much Mario Cristobal wants to utilize special packages or certain plays to kind of get him involved in the offense. You're going to have to get Malachi Tony involved in this offense early for them to find a way to win this game. I think really it's come down to the fact that, they've got a good rushing attack. And again, the trenches seem to be Miami's forte, but like I said a few minutes ago, Malachi Tony has been at times the reason that Miami has won and lost these games. He was certainly the reason they won against Texas A&M. He played a big role in that, and their win against Ole Miss as well. So Malachi Tony is going to be the impact player for Miami in this game. I think that's really what it comes down to. I think it's fair to say that Miami is a huge underdog coming into this game, just based on how well Indiana has played all year and especially in this postseason. But the best way to do it is to get Malachi Tony involved early and just find a way to, I think Dylan mentioned a few minutes ago, but find a way to just make Fernando Mendoza have to work for it. Get pressure on him. Do not give him time and space, because you give him any sort of sliver of time, he's going to make a completion. But Malachi Tony is the X factor in this game, and he is probably going to be the deciding factor on if Miami can pull off this upset or not.
Dylan, who stands out for you?
Yeah, I highlighted a matchup that I think is going to be pivotal to Indiana's success. And I think on Miami's end of things, you can look at Malachi Tony. I think you can look at Mark Fletcher, a guy who's gotten better as the season's gone on. And particularly every time my X factor in this game has succeeded in his career, he's had a good run game to lean on. Despite going back to that 37-5 record, which I've now fact-checked is correct, Carson Beck has won more games than pretty much anybody in the college football record books. Carson Beck has played in some of the biggest games in college football in the last 5 years. Carson Beck has been in the national championship stage before, not necessarily as a starter, but I digress. Carson Beck's been in this moment before. Carson Beck's been in big games before. But Carson Beck hasn't always risen to the occasion in these games. What will Carson Beck do tonight? To me, he's the X factor, because if he can go toe-to-toe with the guy who's won a Heisman and is likely to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, to Dylan's chagrin, if Carson Beck can go toe-to-toe with Mendoza tonight, if the Miami skill players can rise to the occasion and take the pressure off of him, Mark Fletcher being the key component there, then Carson Beck likely will be decisive. Carson Beck will likely be able to deal, and Carson Beck will likely to be able to put up at least solid numbers against this Indiana defense. But to me, if they can get home, to me, if they can get in his face, to me, if they can do the simulated pressures that have worked to pretty much stymie every good quarterback this season, keep in mind they went up against Dante Moore, Ty Simpson, and Julian Sayin in the last 3 games. 3 pretty good quarterbacks that I would argue are on the same caliber, if not better, than Carson Beck. And they've been able to stymie all of them. If they can do that to Beck tonight, then there's no shot really for Miami to win this football game. But if he can be the most experienced quarterback on the field tonight, be that decisive quarterback, be that game changer that everybody's been waiting for Carson Beck to be, and honestly, to play to the level of his experience, Carson Beck can be the X factor that has them hoisting the championship trophy by the end of the night. It's just a matter of if, which has always been the biggest key to Carson Beck's career.
Justin?
Yeah, I want to quickly touch on the trenches because somehow I kind of got thrown to the side for that and asked instead how Indiana got there against Oregon. So I want to quick mention the trenches. The left tackle, I believe his last name, I think it's Carter Smith for Indiana, has had a solid year. It's the right side of that line that Miami has to exploit tonight, whether that be Mesidor, whether that be Ruben Bain. Miami can do whatever. They can switch those guys. Heck, they could put them both on the same side of the line and make it really, really tough to get anything going for Indiana. Although, Roman Hemby isn't afraid to throw his body into a block. That stands out to me as well, especially they also have some good tight ends when it comes to blocking as well. I'm going to stick in the trenches. I'm going to go to the other side for my X factor, though. I'm going to talk about Miami's offensive line opening things up for Mark Fletcher. It's kind of a 2-for-1 deal here where it's their O-line working alongside Fletcher. Fletcher in these playoffs, 172 yards against A&M, 90 rushing yards against Ohio State, plus adding 25 through the air and a touchdown in the receiving game, and then ran for 133 on 22 attempts against Ole Miss. If you hand it off to Mark Fletcher in these playoffs, you have consistently been ahead of the sticks. You hand it to them on him on 1st and 10, it's now 2nd and 4. You hand it to him on 2nd and 4, it's now 1st and 10. So he has been able to consistently move the chains, and a big reason has been Miami's offensive line has been much improved as of late. They're not the greatest offensive line unit in the country, but they have certainly made some money here in the postseason. And let's not forget, the biggest injury coming into the postseason that nobody's talking about anymore is the defensive tackle for the Hoosiers, Stephen Daly, who got hurt after the Big Ten championship celebrating with fans. That plays right into this running game and into this offensive line for the Hurricanes. That is where this game is going to come down to. If Mark Fletcher gets going, it opens up the game for Dylan's X Factor in Carson Beck, which in turn opens up Josh's X Factor in Malachi Toney. So I think Mark Fletcher might just be the biggest X Factor for Miami in this game because
what a domino effect.
His success, means either Carson Beck and the rest of the offense can get going, or if he struggles and they have to rely on Carson Beck, is Beck what Beck has been in this playoff, which has been rather turnover free, or is Beck the old Carson Beck? And one last point here, coaching matters. And Thomas, maybe after you go, we can dive into this coaching, head to head real quick, because Mario Cristobal coming into this year and even in this year has been questioned a lot, but I'll let you go on your X Factor first.
Yeah, I mean, my X Factor, and I'm surprised nobody mentioned this because you look at Miami, and while Fletcher has had a lot of success on the ground, Malachi Toney, CJ Daniels, Keelan Moore, they've been very good. So who's going to guard them? Well, Indiana's secondary has been a big X Factor for them, and we talked about it. D'Angelo Pons pick 6 to start the game. I believe there was a stat, and I, again, don't have it exactly in front of me, but their opponents have less points on their first drive than Indiana's defense. And I believe that's for two or three return touchdowns on the first drive, which is just a crazy stat. And you look at Lewis Moore, who has stayed with Indiana for years, D'Angelo Pons, those are going to be X factors in shutting down Malachi Toney and the pass game, because like Justin's saying, if they don't have a defensive tackle that can fill in against Mark Fletcher, they're going to have to load the box. So you're going to have to go more man coverage. And if you go a lot more man coverage, that opens up a lot of holes for standout players like Malachi Toney to get open. So I think the DBs, and I know I'm going to go with a position group, but obviously I think D'Angelo Pons is going to be huge just because he made that play last game. He's got a nose for breaking up passes. And watching these NFL games, it's clear that breaking up passes is very important because you can get interceptions out of them, apparently. But I think it's going to be key because if Indiana gets a big defensive play out of the gate, I think that completely throws off Miami's approach because Miami wants to run the ball. Like, we know they do. I bet they would run the ball every single play if it got them 6 to 8 yards, 5 to 6 yards every play. Like, they want to live in the trenches. They want to get Malachi Tony on the edge. I don't think they necessarily want to throw the ball downfield as much. They want to go with those short and intermediate throws, put their guys in space, then run the ball down your throat. So I think if Indiana can make a big defensive play in the secondary early on, that will be very beneficial for them being able to load the box and having confidence in being able to shut down those receivers on the outside. That's my X factor in this game because I think defenses are going to rule this game. I mean, these are two very good defenses, and they are coached by some defensive minds, you could say, in Curt Cignetti and Mario Cristobal. So let's talk about that matchup here. Obviously, two coaches that I believe just met for the first time heading into this championship game. Justin, we'll start with you since you brought it up, but what do you look at first when you look at this coaching matchup?
The stark contrast in the two, the style, swagger, and everything that Mario Cristobal brings as a Miami alum and a Letterman versus what Curt Cignetti brings, which is straight business, nonstop. His team scores a touchdown, and he's not flinching. He's not smiling. I mean, it's really, Cristobal got kissed by Michael Irvin on national TV in the last game. There's stark differences. I have a feeling if anyone tried to kiss Curt Cignetti, no matter how famous they are, even if it's Mark Cuban who is currently feeding into Indiana's transfer portal, I think he might punch him. But Cristobal just let it go. But in reality, I mean, Mario Cristobal or Curt Cignetti, when he got hired, it was his second press conference. Everyone thinks it was his first. It was his second with JMU. Or after JMU, when he got to Indiana, he said, "Google me, all I do is win." You Google him, sure enough, all he does is win. Mario Cristobal, if he were to say, "Google me," what's the search result for him? Well, it's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. He's 97-78 as a head coach overall. He was at FIU for a while. He went to Oregon, before Miami, and now Miami. He's 6-5 in bowl games, and this is his first college football playoff. He's 3-0 in. So you look at that mixed bag of results, and you think furthermore into some of them. You think about Miami's late season collapse last year with the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. You think about how Miami collapsed in the second half of this season, with the losses that they shouldn't have had on their resume that almost got them knocked out of the college football playoff, and now we're talking about them in the national championship. He has been able this postseason to put some of those past mistakes, some of those game management problems behind him, right? You think about what he was able to accomplish against a tough Texas A&M team on the road. You think about what he did against Ohio State. You think about, most notably, a close game down the stretch against Ole Miss, and he coached it perfectly. I can't think of a time in that game where I said, what the heck is Mario Cristobal doing here? That's stupid. That's going to come back to bite them. And sure enough, it never did. Cristobal's got to be on his A game because Curt Cignetti could have his B- game and still outcoach Mario Cristobal's A+ game. That's what we've seen over the course of these two's careers. And I think it really comes down to, can Cristobal get this team to strictly focus on the game? There's going to be so many Lettermen there. I mean, Irvin is one of them. It is at home, albeit they're the away team. There's these distractions. There's Carson Beck not going to class since who knows when. There's all this there. Well, Indiana took a flight. They're in a new town. They're strictly there for the game. So they're operating business as usual. So can Mario Cristobal channel his inner Curt Cignetti, if he has it, and get this team to focus just on 60 minutes of football? Don't worry about what club down in Miami you might go have some fun in, like the Florida Panthers, and probably partying with the Panthers, if I had to guess. Kachuk already said he's going to the game after their game ends tonight. So, I mean, it just comes down to focus, determination. I think, look, Cignetti, great story, all that. This does mean a little bit more for Mario Cristobal, too. I said it at the beginning. He's a Letterman. He was a guy, I listened to his press conference the other day, and he said it. He said he was a nobody from the area that went to practices, saw what the Brotherhood of Miami meant, and by happen chance got a scholarship, him and his brother. And since then, it's never left him. So, it means a little bit more, but he's got to channel that out too. strict 60 minutes of football and see what happens.
Well, Michael Irvin, if you didn't see the SNL skit,
that was good. That was really good.
That was the GOAT delivering.
He's currently on his way running there. If you didn't know, he's
probably been there for 2 weeks.
Yeah. But Dylan, I want to talk to you because I wonder if Dylan will have any kind words to say to Curt Cignetti here. But we'll start with Mario Cristobal for you.
Well, this has come very full circle on the guy you want me to go second for here. But for Mario Cristobal, it's come pretty full circle too. I rooted for the Oregon Ducks when he was with them. I thought it was always strange that he went back to his alma mater, but I do get it. And like I said earlier, he had a pretty simple goal. I want to build this team in the model of an SEC team, and he did. They were the team that always won hypothetically on paper, just like an SEC team. They were the team that always was almost there, but never enough, just like an SEC team. And then they were a team that got really damn good in the trenches, and that's what's gotten them here. I mean, that's simply what it is. I'm going to tip my hat to Mario Cristobal. But somehow in this game, he's actually become the guy I like less. The whole little song and dance he did in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl about basically groaning and rolling his eyes when he held up the trophy. Celebrate the wins because the loss is going to sting. And I'm not going to tip my hand on what my final pick's going to be, but maybe he should have celebrated the win a little bit more. But I have to, in all seriousness, tip the cap to both these coaches. They've done an exceptional job rebuilding their rosters. Both of these programs were in a bad way when they took over, especially the Hoosiers. More on that in a second. But Cristobal is a hard-nosed coach. He's clearly a fun guy, and he's done, I think, a really good job with this program, hitting all the marks and the goals in which he wanted to build the team in. And for the moment you guys have all waited for, am I going to finally give him his flowers? We'll wait on that.
Okay,
you're so dramatic. And
the moment we'll all wait for, but just keep waiting.
No, in all seriousness, I mean, Google him. You literally all you have to. 26-2. He's probably got another win coming his way, and he's done an incredible job. And the Indiana Hoosiers were a laughing stock of college football, and now they might be the best story in sports in the past decade if they can if they can go full circle tonight. I mean, this has been the best coaching job we may have ever seen.
I like that when you do Google Curt Cignetti, one of 3 pictures of him smiling pops up, which is fun to see. Because
I think one of them is also from like this week when he posed with the national championship trophy. That's one of the 3.
Well, and I know Indiana is doing a promo where you can have it mailed out, a bingo card, and on that bingo card is a Curt Cignetti smile. So I don't know if that one's going to get checked off until after the game, depending on the result. But Josh, we'll go to you for the coaching matchup here.
Probably still won't even, realistically, even if they win.
Job not finished, even after.
Job not finished. Shout out Justin for the hockey mention. The first time we've ever had that on this podcast with Kachuk.
It always comes back to hockey.
It always does for me. Look, that's kind of my job, actually. Or both in this case. Anyways, you guys know that I have actually really kind of always been a Mario Cristobal hater, especially in the last few years with Miami, especially after that Georgia Tech blunder a few years ago. I was on the train of, maybe Miami needs to move on. And boy, are they glad they don't listen to a 22-year-old who lives in Rochester, Minnesota, who has no idea what he's talking about, because they've made the right decision by keeping Mario Cristobal. Look, it's not just the ability to not make those boneheaded game management decisions like Justin was talking about, especially against Ole Miss, but it's the roster reconstruction too. Like, you lose the number 1 overall pick and the Heisman winner from last year in Cam Warren, and you kind of, I'm not going to say take a flyer, but you take a little bit of a chance on a guy like Carson Beck, who was coming off of elbow surgery and a down year with Georgia. And a lot of people, kind of thought that this was the end of the rope for Carson Beck and going to Miami. Oh, it's not going to be that good. Miami is going to be bad, this and that. And he proved them wrong. Yeah, they had a little bit of a dip in the middle of the season, which is kind of a Mario Cristobal special. You're going to lose a game or 2 in the middle of October that you're not supposed to, but won the other games he was supposed to in dominant fashion, and kind of took a team that had expectations, but I don't think they necessarily were in the conversation for a national championship. Took them there and has really, really improved his coaching since those blunders a few years ago. I mean, there's not really much else you can say on the other side, though, for Curt Cignetti. I mean, guy wins. That's all he does. I mean, and I'm pretty sure, I think someone needs to get a fact check on this, but I think out of all Power 4 teams, Indiana is historically the worst Power 4 football program in college football history until Curt Cignetti got there. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. And in the span of 2 years, he's not just turned them into a respectable program, but kind of the new dynasty in college football. I think regardless of if they win or lose in this game, 26-2 in your first 2 years, you've dominated your way through this college football playoff. Your team is set to be just as good next year as well. And it's not just like, yeah, Indiana now has money from Mark Cuban or whatever, but guys want to play for Curt Cignetti. They want to go to Indiana and they want to be part of now what I don't. If you asked 5 years ago that Indiana was going to be a winning program in college football and a winning culture, people would call you insane. But that's just the way that things have kind of gone.
Still
It's
call
very
us insane. That's the crazy part.
That is, yeah. Well, that might be for other reasons, but I think it is really. I think Justin kind of hit the nail on the head when talking about just the kind of stark contrast between these two, with Cristobal being a Miami alum, with there being a lot more kind of riding on it for him versus a guy like Curt Cignetti. That's just, it's a business trip for him. He's not really an Indiana guy. Pretty sure he's a PA guy, if anything, and it doesn't matter for him. He's gone wherever he's needed. And he's done the job. So I do think Curt Cignetti is the better coach overall in this matchup. I still have my concerns about Mario Cristobal, especially this being the first time he's been on a stage this big. I do think there could be the possibility of those coaching mishaps, rearing their ugly head. But you got to give him props for getting his team to this point, especially after I said that his butt should have been out the door a few years ago.
I agree with everything, and I don't really have much to add. You guys kind of hit on the points I was going to make, but I think the interesting thing for me is that these two coaches came into the college football playoff with different types of pressure, right? Like Miami coming in with, should they have even been here, conversations, to now being in the national championship and having gone 3-0 in those games, and the pressure of, you had to win at least one for Miami. Otherwise, the conversations of Notre Dame should have been in would have been just, highlighted even more. And now those are kind of just completely shut down. And then on Indiana's side, it's, okay, you got the number 1 seed. You beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Can you win when it really comes down to, trying to win a national championship? And they've done that so far. So I think either way the result goes tonight, both coaches, I would say, have faced the pressure and handled it. Obviously, one is going to get the job done fully. One is going to miss out just slightly. But I think that's the matchup, or that's the thing I look at in this coaching matchup, is both coaches were able to handle the different situations that were thrown at them, and were able to really just leave no doubt as far as, should they have been in, are they a top team in the country, are they frauds, that kind of talk. I think the roster creation, or makeup for both of these teams compared to all the other teams in college football playoff is so interesting, because it is a mix of a lot of transfers, a lot of players coming over from different schools as far as Curt Cignetti is goes on, but like there's not many freshmen besides like Malachi Tony. There's not many freshmen on these rosters that are standing out, and I think that's what is interesting to me, is it's a lot of veteran experience on both of these sides. And in this age of the NIL and the transfer portal, young teams are more common than older teams. And I think that's what's so fun about this matchup, is these coaches are kind of redefining what it is to build a successful roster, as far as it's not all about the 5-star high school recruits that you can get. It's not about the 4 stars. Like, you could do it with the 2-star, 3-star transfer portal players. So I just wanted to make that point, as far as I think that's fun with the matchup, and that the coaches have really handled the pressure. But we're over an hour now, so I say let's get into it and kind of wrap this up.
We got some breaking news.
Do we?
The Miami Dolphins are closing in on a deal tie Jeff Hafley,
former NCAA college football coach. That's the only real tie to this program.
Or because guess what? They're playing in Hard Rock Stadium where the Dolphins play.
Oh,
much better fit.
Anyway,
well,
great hire.
Carry on.
Well, let's talk about the final result of this game, because it does have implications for our scoring as well.
Blah,
unfortunately,
Mr.
Grant Sheets and Dylan are trailing behind. But I will say, Illinois State in a thriller with Montana State did not get the win. That was a good game though for an FCS national championship. I don't know. I know Justin was watching.
That was a great game.
Sure if you guys were watching.
I still had a dog in the fight until the second that the actual FBS playoffs kicked back up.
Right. And then in those games, Justin picked Oregon. They did not win that.
No, they didn't. In fact, they didn't come close.
No, but
it was over 6 seconds in, actually.
But you did get Miami, which is important because at this stage, if I could pull up the overall total, here we go. Dylan does get an extra couple points.
Let's go!
For his picks. So he is up to 93 now, 105 and 72 record. Grant's at 38 points, so a little bit closer to Dylan than probably should be, in my opinion. Just to put that out there. But going into it, because we had those extra points, and the national champion is worth 2 points, Josh had a chance. Unfortunately, he's not close enough, but he can still he can't still tie Justin at this point. Because
why even give me the hope, man?
I'm sorry, I read it wrong. But Josh does finish potentially with 109 points, 106 and 71 record. And now here's the deciding factor. Justin and I are separated by a single point. So as you can tell, if Indiana wins, I will win the point total at a 114 mark would be my final total at 117 and 61. If Justin and Miami win this matchup, he will jump me and win with 113, a 114 and 64 record. So there's a lot on the line here. Obviously, Justin and I can't change our picks as far as Indiana and Miami. I'm going to give my stake on why I think Indiana is going to win. Justin, we'll have you give your stake on Miami, and then we'll have Dylan and Josh round it off with their picks. And you know what? We'll throw a pick on the line here for them as well, or a point on the line. For them as well to see.
That's just a pity point. We can't do anything.
Can I pass Josh?
No, you can't pass me.
If you guys choose differently,
about the rankings.
No, because he's gonna go first and he's gonna pick Kurt Signetti.
You know what? If Dylan picks against Josh and gets it right, we'll give Dylan 10 points. And he still won't be beating Josh. So with that, my take on Indiana is simply they have been dominating in the postseason and they are hot at the right time. I think the defense is playing really well. I don't think Mendoza has to do too much in this game as long as the defense is continuing to play well. I think this is a low-scoring affair. So if Mendoza throws for 2 touchdowns and they run the ball, they waste clock, I think Indiana gets out on top and wins this game. I know the spread right now is -7.5, I believe, on FanDuel. It started at 8.5. I would not feel comfortable taking Indiana on the spread, but I do think it is more than 3.5 is the line I would go. I think it's more than a field goal in this contest, like a 24-20 score. I'm not going to lock that score in, but something like that. Justin, your take on why Miami's going to come out on top?
Don't like that already.
They like to say like something like Hoosiers, but I ask who have the Hoosiers played this year? Let's go look at Indiana's schedule.
We're in the college football national championship.
We're doing this right now.
Stop.
What are you doing with this bit?
Let me have my time. I didn't interrupt Thomas. I'm not gonna interrupt you, Dylan, and I ain't gonna interrupt Josh. Well, maybe. But let me talk. Let me just talk, guys. Let me talk. They played a bunch of weak out of conference opponents. Not going to go there. In the Big Ten, they played Iowa. It was kept close. I keep that note in your head. We have now known that Oregon, who, by the way, when we talk about Oregon, they legit played no one. Did you guys unadd yourself from here? Unbelievable. I mean, I like it, but they. God, I thought you were doing it again. I left my tab and I heard Dylan clicking around there. Oregon clearly didn't belong as high as they did. We had talked about that, blah, blah, blah. Penn State, they played that team very closely. Ohio State, that was a close game as well. Miami's had a tougher schedule since week 1. With Notre Dame at the top, they played some more, teams throughout, and they've had the harder path here in the national champion or in the playoffs, in my humble, not so humble opinion. This is a Miami team that, to me, has the advantages where it needs the advantages. I'm not talking about quarterback because I think Mendoza is the better of the two here. But I'm talking elsewhere. I'm talking that Miami's got a better running game right now in this very moment. I'm talking they've got the better receivers led by Malachi Toney, who you guys have talked about constantly. Obviously they've got the trenches figured out. And Indiana, I listed those teams for a reason to tell you Indiana hasn't played a team with this much talent on defense. And that's just the simple matter of the fact is there's not been a team with this much defensive talent up top in the front seven that Miami's faced. Indiana's faced. The secondary, it's got some questions. It certainly does. But if Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor can get home quick, then the secondary doesn't matter. And to me, that's the way I see this game playing out. I think Mesidor and Bain are the best 1-2 combo in college football. They're clearly the best 1-2 combo left in college football, and they've been carrying the load. They have made every team that Miami has played on this playoff run, they have made them change their game plan. They changed A&M's. They dominated A&M. They changed Ohio State's. Ohio State really never got the ball moving on New Year's Eve. They made Ole Miss change theirs a little bit. And, well, Ole Miss had a little bit of a success, but they also have that dual threat quarterback that Indiana doesn't have. Miami's defense, that's where I see this game coming down to. They've got the better of the two defenses, and for that reason, it's all about the U.
No, it's not.
You talk about dynamic duos, and, I don't even think they're the best dynamic duo in this game. I mean, Curt Cignetti and winning has to be, right? Indiana.
Good try, man. Good try.
I'm just saying. I think
you threw the lob up to me.
Throwing the lob. Okay.
I wanted Dylan to go last, but we seemingly lost.
I know.
We lost one quarter of this podcast.
I was going to say it. Yeah.
I don't mind. I've been marinating in this take for about a day and a half. I think our viewership total is up to its highest for this big moment.
How'd you do that? Did you call in some favors? Hey, make sure you tune in while I make my pick.
I'm just tapped in like that. We've been going for over an hour and 11 minutes, and I've been waiting to do this the entire time. There's something in the air. It's night. The stars are bright. Fernando. He's not going to be a New York Jet, but at the very least, he's going to be a national champion, my friends. Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana Hoosiers, they are the best team, the best story that we've seen in the modern era of college football. I hate to say it. I've not liked saying it all year long. I haven't liked saying it since he was hired, but Google him, folks. All he really does is win. Curt Cignetti, the Indiana Hoosiers, are going to be the national champions tonight. They're going to prove that in this portal world, in this wild, wild west that we started this whole hour and 12-minute long podcast today talking about, in this wild world, all you have to do is pay a lot of money, find the right people, and build the right culture. Alexa, now is not the time to chime in. The reality is this, that if you assemble the right cast of characters, if you've got the right leader at the helm, if you've got the right quarterback at the helm, and if you've got people who buy into your brand and your message, you can win a national title. And tonight, that's what's going to happen. Mario Cristobal, the Miami Hurricanes, they've been an incredible story. They've been great all year long. They deserve to make the playoff, and they certainly proved that, just like Notre Dame did a year ago. But when the dust is settled, when the bell has tolled, the national champions will be the guy who, Google him, he will officially be a national champion after tonight. I'm not going to sing again, but the reality is and Thomas hit it with me, the Hoosiers are going
not
to be
quite synced up there, guys.
I tried.
And that's how Indiana's offense is going to be tonight. It's just not going to quite be synced up. You keep talking about a story. You know what's fun? You know what the best type of book is? One that has a sequel after it. And guess what? Indiana's going to have to write its own sequel next year because they ain't winning tonight. They're going to have a different story to write.
Some books, some movies don't need a second or a third movie or a book.
Yeah, and Indiana's is going to need one.
They're probably going to get it next year. Josh Hoover is going to be the next Mendoza, and all will be right when he's in New York.
No, the little Mendoza is going to be the next Mendoza.
Albert Mendoza?
Yeah.
Listen, Mendoza, this has been the best story all year. This team's been the best story. They've gone from – I think the question really at the end of tonight is going to be, where does this team rank amongst the all-time greats?
Can we have that conversation since Josh isn't here?
Yeah, and then also, where do they rank amongst the best sports stories of all time?
They would get blown out by –
stories, they're top. They're near
They're a top 5 of all time.
Yeah, I mean,
Well-
you have to think about it in the grand scheme, even beyond this year, like just the last 2 years, like going from, like Josh said, the bottom of the FBS to now potentially being top of the top in 2 years. Like that has to be an insane, insane level comeback story. And as far as teams go and ranking, I don't know about top 5, like top.
It's not top 10. It might
You
not even be
think?
top 15.
Stop.
No,
it.
don't tell me to stop it. Don't tell
When
me to
this
stop
year-
it. You put
when
them
this
on the
year is
field
come to a
with some of these
conclusion,
past great
If
teams.
they win a national title tonight, they are in the top 3 best teams of the last 2, maybe 3 decades. It's them, and then after that, before that, it's whatever it is. LSU 2019 is one.
Yes,
The
that
Florida
has to be
Gators
one.
team is going to be up there.
Alabama with
Alabama,
Devonta
20
Smith and
was
Mac
was that
Jones.
2020?
2020.
This is at the very least, this is a top 5 team. They will
No.
have. I feel like people are forgetting the fact that in this entire playoff, this entire year, Indiana will have gone undefeated. Justin, you can make the whole case that they are they played whatever. Yeah, so did most of those teams at some point in their run. But at the end of the day, they have boat raced pretty much everybody.
Hold up. Are we talking about best team in terms of result or best teams in terms of talent? Because you're talking result. They went undefeated, blah, blah, blah. But the matter of fact is, if you're going talent, there is 5, 10, 15 teams that would blow this team out of the water. It wouldn't even be close. This team is not a talented team. This is a scrappy team. That's okay.
I don't know
The
about
quarterback
that.
just won a
I
Heisman.
shouldn't
People
have
don't
said
know
not
about that.
talented.
This is
They're
how bad
talented,
this take is.
but they are not
This is
highly
an awful
talented.
take. This
They
is
are
an
not
awful take.
highly talented.
The quarterback
They are highly
Heisman,
motivated.
Have
They
guys
are
drafted up and
scrappy.
down the roster.
They fight.
This is an awful take, Justin.
Congrats,
that's-
and I stand on it because
Take a shoe at
they wouldn't beat a ton of the teams they wouldn't have beat last year's Ohio State.
They would have
Let that
dominated.
sink in.
last
They
year.
would not have
I
beat
think
last
you
year's
say-
Ohio State.
Dominated.
I think you saying on the field, talent-wise, they don't have enough
It's
to
an
match up
awful
with other
take.
teams. But I think that makes their case that much better because it's not about how much individual talent you have on the field. It's can you work together as a unit? And Indiana is up there in the top 10, maybe top 5. I have to do a little bit more research on it, but I think they are top there as far as working as a unit. I mean, when you look at the LSU team, like it wasn't just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It was, Justin Jefferson and all those guys as well. Like they were just loaded with talent, but they all worked together. They all meshed so well. And when you look at this Indiana unit, offense and defense, like they just all mesh so well that I think if you were hypothetically, let's play the hypothetical game, to put them head to head with some of those great teams, they would compete and potentially win because of the fact that as long as you mesh well, you are going to play well. And, you could have a 5-star at quarterback, you could have a 5-star running back, but if you can't run the ball, what does it matter? So I think your take of they don't have any talent in, one position as far as, 5-star, 4-star, whatever that is, and as far as ranking, but like they have the Heisman and the talent level, I think is just underrated because when you look at Indiana, you don't look at as having insanely good players as far as 5 stars and 5-star transfers, but I would argue that the talent is just as good. I agree with Dylan. I think LSU 2019, in my opinion, is the greatest team of all time. And I don't think Indiana, to be honest, comes that close to them even. So I just think that your take as far as they wouldn't be top 10, I think is a little crazy.
I mean, I'm not going to do this now just because of the sake of switching between tabs and all that. Next time we have a podcast, I will bring a list of 10 teams and I'll do thorough research because, there's a ton of teams that played outside of our, lifetime as well.
True.
Let's not forget about that.
Like Miami's old teams, yeah.
And college football's been going on since the 1800s or even before that. So I'm not going to go back that far. It would all be
he
recent.
Comes back with Yale or Harvard.
Yale 1747 was a really good.
I already know he's going to send me some stupid list in like 2 hours when he's bored out of his mind and like possibly 2 or 3 adult beverages deep where he's got LSU.
There's none here, so I don't know where I'm getting those from.
Teams at the top, and then we're going to be like, it's going to be like Penn State 2023 team with
Saquon Barkley would run all over this Indiana defense. You guys don't want to hear that.
All right. Can we
Whoa,
go
hold
off?
up, time out,
Josh was going to pick Indiana. Let's end the show.
Hear my words there. I didn't say Penn State would beat this Indiana team. I said
He
Saquon would run all over this Indiana.
He ran all over everybody, dude. That's why he's in the NFL.
Yeah, and guess what? James Franklin still couldn't win with them.
Did he win a Super Bowl? The Eagles, right? Not the team that's on your jersey right now.
Oh, here we go.
Wow.
How many Super Bowls has your team even been to, man?
Oh.
None in your lifetime. None in your lifetime. Two
They
in my life.
probably never will, but that's an episode for another day.
Not only have they been to two, they've won two in my lifetime. So, oh look, Josh is back.
Thank God we killed
Thank
enough time for
goodness.
him to come back.
Josh,
Let's
we
see
need you
what-
here.
Oh boy, he's just going in and out. All right, Josh. So
Make
we've
your
been
picks so we
debating
can get
here.
out of here.
Yeah. let's
Okay,
make your
my
pick.
pick, it's very simple. Indiana, I think they have a better roster. I know I talked a lot about Miami, and I think I think everything has to go right for Miami to win this game. I don't see everything going their way. I think Indiana is just too perfect of a well-oiled machine, and I think they're going to win. I think it'll be a fun one, but I think they'll pull away at the end. I'll go 34-20. That'll be my score.
All right. Well, he goes by 2 scores there, which I think is interesting. I don't know if I would go quite 2 scores as I.
It's a late touchdown by Indiana to make it just a game.
But that.
Wait, are you
does
saying
it
it's a
for
late
our
touchdown,
picks.
Josh? You mean Indiana's specialty all season, running up the score?
Oh, I missed that part of the conversation. But all right.
I've
There
had
we
enough
go.
of him.
Much needed. Much
I'm
needed.
back.
I
That
can't
will
stand
do
it.
it.
No.
Guys, those are our final picks of the year. It has been a long journey. We've made countless
long.
picks this season. We will be back next season. We'll
So
be back
back.
next week because we're
Why
gonna
not tonight after the game?
No,
Maybe.
we have
But
jobs.
when we come back next time, you will see us
So next
talking
time.
about the national championship. We're going to give our final top 25, give our way too early top 25 for
Way too
2026.
early.
And then we will talk about transfer portal and get you set for next college football season. But shout out to everyone watching on YouTube. This was fun. A little
You
live
guys not have
episode
anything
here.
else to do?
How many viewers do we have? Can we see?
I think we peaked at
right.
6.
I believe it was
6 or
7.
7.
I
When
believe it
Dylan
was 7.
sang.
But thank you to you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned for the episode next week, and we will see you next time here on Locks and Long Shots.